The desert of Krylon 9 was quiet that morning, the twin suns rising slowly over the endless dunes. The heat shimmered on the sand, but Ethan Vale felt a cool determination inside him. He had survived the dune hunt, faced the true predator, and earned the tentative respect of Kale Rix, the fiercest young Vorathi hunter. But today was different. Today, he would face the judgment of the elders and the full scrutiny of the Vorathi people. Ethan approached the central arena, where the elders and warriors had gathered. Their faces were serious, some skeptical, some curious. The stories of his triumph over the desert and its deadliest predator had spread quickly. Even those who had mocked him before now watched with cautious attention. Kale Rix walked beside him, a silent shield of strength and respect. The young Vorathi warrior had observed Ethan closely over the past days, and now spoke in the council's presence. "This human has survived where others would have fallen," Kale Rix began, his voice echoing across the arena. "He has faced the dune hunt and the true predator. He has used his mind, his courage, and his skill to overcome challenges that many of us cannot. He has earned recognition." The elders were silent for a long moment, considering the words. Then the lead elder spoke, his tone solemn. "Ethan Vale, Terran of Earth, you have faced our trials and survived. You have shown qualities rare among those who come to Krylon 9. You have proven intelligence, patience, and bravery. These are the marks of a warrior even among the Vorathi." Ethan bowed respectfully. "I did what I had to do," he said simply. "I survived and learned." "That is all," the council murmured, impressed by his humility. Kale Rix nodded, satisfied that the Terran understood the values of the desert and the Vorathi way of life. One of the elders, a stern figure who had been among the most critical of Ethan, stepped forward. "You have shown skill, but more than that, you have shown respect for life. You did not seek to destroy the predator, only to survive and demonstrate your ability. That is an honor." Ethan felt a warmth in his chest. Recognition from the Vorathi elders was far more than he had imagined. He had come to Krylon 9 as a stranger, laughed at and underestimated, yet now he stood among the greatest hunters of the desert, acknowledged for his courage, intelligence, and ingenuity. Kale Rix finally spoke again, addressing the crowd. "In our society there is a bond stronger than blood, a bond forged through respect and shared challenge. Ethan Vale has proven himself worthy of this bond. From this day he is no longer merely a human outsider. He is a companion, a hunter, and a brother." The words echoed across the arena. Murmurs of surprise and admiration passed among the warriors. To be called brother by Kale Rix was the highest honor a Vorathi could offer to a peer. Ethan felt a mix of pride and humility. He had earned more than respect. He had earned a bond that transcended species, forged in the fire of challenge and the crucible of the desert. Kale Rix stepped forward and extended his hand. Massive and strong to Ethan, the human shook it firmly, meeting the warrior's gaze without fear or hesitation. In that moment, a connection was formed, one of mutual respect and trust. The elders nodded in approval. "This union of skill and courage will serve as an example to all," the lead elder said. "It shows that strength comes not only from muscle, but from intelligence, perseverance, and heart. Krylon 9 has learned something new today, about humans and about respect." Ethan looked around at the Vorathi, their expressions shifting from doubt to admiration. Some smiled, some bowed slightly, and others simply watched quietly, acknowledging that the Terran had achieved something remarkable. As the council ended, Kale Rix led Ethan to the edge of the desert, where the dunes stretched endlessly into the horizon. The sun was high, casting long shadows and sparkling on the sand like scattered jewels. "You have done more than survive," Kale Rix said softly. "You have proven that humans are capable of more than we expected. Your mind, your courage, and your determination are as strong as any blade. You have earned the respect of this desert and its people." Ethan nodded, feeling the weight and importance of the moment. "I only did what I had to. The desert taught me and I listened. That was my strength." Kale Rix smiled faintly. "You are humble, yet your actions speak louder than words. That is why you are my brother." Ethan looked at the Vorathi, realizing the true meaning of the bond he had earned. It was not just about respect or recognition. It was about shared experience, shared challenges, and shared understanding. He had crossed the boundary between species not through strength alone, but through courage, intelligence, and integrity. The two of them returned to the encampment, walking side by side. Other warriors fell into step behind them, Their expressions changed from doubt to admiration. Whispers of the human who survived the true predator spread through the ranks, carrying a mixture of awe and curiosity. That evening, as the twin moons rose over Krylon 9, casting a gentle light over the desert, Ethan sat beside Kale Rix near a small campfire. The warmth of the fire was comforting, but it was the recognition and the bond that truly warmed him. "You have changed how we see your people," Kale Rix said, staring into the flames. "Humans are not weak, not helpless. You survive, adapt, and even thrive where others fail. You have shown us what we did not believe possible." Ethan looked up at the moons, their pale light reflecting in his eyes. "I hope this is only the beginning. Humans and Varathi can learn from each other. We can survive together, even thrive." Kale Rix nodded. "Yes, and perhaps one day, others will see what you have shown me. That courage, intelligence, and heart can surpass even the greatest strength." The next morning, Ethan and Kale Rix led a group of Varathi hunters on a patrol across the dunes. The predators that had once terrified the desert now moved with respect around the human and the Varathi. Ethan's strategies and careful observation had changed the way the hunters approached survival. He demonstrated traps, read terrain, and shared insights into movement and timing. The Varathi watched closely, learning from the human who had once been laughed at. His influence spread quietly but powerfully, showing that cooperation and respect could create greater strength than pride and isolation alone. By midday, the desert had become a classroom and Ethan a teacher. Kale Rix observed proudly as the young Terran led with confidence and skill, showing not just how to survive, but how to respect the desert, its creatures, and each other. The elders called another council to honor the day's achievements. "Ethan Vale has shown that the measure of a warrior is not only strength, but courage, intelligence, and respect for life," the lead elder said. "He has earned the title of hunter, and more importantly, the bond of brotherhood with Kale Rix. Let this be a lesson for all. Greatness comes in many forms." Ethan stood quietly, humbled by the recognition but filled with quiet pride. He had come to Krylon 9 as a stranger, laughed at and underestimated. Now he was celebrated, honored, and respected. But more than that, he had forged a connection that transcended species, built on trust, courage, and shared challenge. Kale Rix clapped him on the shoulder, a firm gesture of brotherhood. "You are one of us now," he said simply. "A hunter, a companion, and my brother." Ethan smiled, feeling a warmth he had never known on Earth. He had proven himself, not through raw strength but through intelligence, patience, courage, and integrity. He had bridged the gap between humans and Varathi, showing that respect and trust could overcome doubt and fear. As the twin moons of Krylon 9 rose high over the dunes, Ethan looked out across the desert. The sand stretched endlessly, but the world now felt smaller, closer, and full of possibility. He had earned his place not only in the desert, but in the hearts of the Varathi. The story of the human who survived the dune hunt, outsmarted the true predator, and earned the respect of the fiercest hunter would be told for generations. Ethan Vale had become more than a Terran. He had become a legend, a bridge between worlds, and a symbol of what courage, intelligence, and determination could achieve. The desert winds whispered around him, carrying a quiet promise. This was only the beginning. Together, humans and Varathi could explore, survive, and thrive in ways neither had imagined. And for Ethan, the journey had only just begun. He was no longer the shamed Terran. He was a hunter, a survivor, and a brother. Ethan Riker had always loved old machines. Even as a boy, he would take apart broken radios, hover carts, and even small drones just to see how they worked. Now, decades later, he roamed one of the galaxy's largest scrapyards orbiting a dead planet. The yard was endless, a chaotic maze of twisted metal, shattered starships, and the bones of machines that had once sailed the stars. Most scavengers were aliens, moving quickly between piles of junk, searching for anything valuable. They wore bright exosuits powered by energy cores they had scavenged from old battle drones. They didn't look at humans as equals. In their eyes, humans were fragile, slow, and easily replaced. Ethan knew it. He had heard their whispers, seen their mocking smiles when he bent over some old piece of metal or dusty engine, but he did not care. He walked through a row of decommissioned starships, their hulls scarred by battles long forgotten. Some ships had once been famous military vessels, now reduced to rusting skeletons. Ethan's eyes caught a shape buried beneath a heap of scrap. A shadow of a warship, small but sturdy, with thick armor plating, lay half buried in twisted metal. Its markings were faded, almost unreadable. But there was a time when this ship had been a fighter, fast and deadly. The aliens nearby laughed when they saw him staring at it. "Why do you waste your time, human?" one hissed, his claw brushing a pile of scrap carelessly. "That ship is dead. You cannot make it fly again." Ethan smiled slightly. "I don't just fix things," he said quietly, more to himself than to the alien. "I make them better." He knelt by the ship and ran his hands over the cold, rusted hull. There were dense scratches and old burn marks. The cockpit was dark, wires hanging loose. Even the engine bay looked almost impossible to repair. Most aliens would have seen only scrap metal, useless pieces. But Ethan saw potential. He checked the ship's identification tag. Excalibur 7, he read aloud. Once a human fighter decommissioned 20 years ago. Abandoned. Everyone says it is worthless. Maybe they are wrong. That evening, after the last scavengers had left the yard, Ethan set up his tools beside the ship. He worked under dim lights, his hands moving with practiced skill. He cleared out debris, checked the wiring, and examined the old control systems. Everything was damaged, but nothing seemed beyond repair. Not for a human like him. Ethan scavenged parts from smaller ships and broken drones around the yard. A laser cannon from a patrol ship here. A reinforced engine coil from a cargo vessel there. Each piece he found, he tested, repaired, and set aside. The aliens continued to watch from a distance, curious though they said nothing. To them, humans were slow and predictable. They did not understand human patience or determination. Days passed, then weeks. Ethan slept in a small bunk beside the ship, eating simple rations, always working whenever he had light. The ship began to change. The hull was reinforced with alloys scavenged from several other ships. He rewired the control systems, connecting old human technology with new alien parts. Slowly, he restored the energy conduits that would power the engines and weapons. The ship was still far from complete, but Ethan felt hope. One night he crouched in the cockpit, staring at the blank display panels. "I think you can fly again," he said softly. "Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon." Some scavengers started to talk about him. "The human is insane," one said. "He works on a dead ship day and night, and he has nothing to show for it." Another whispered, "Humans are strange. They see life where nothing exists. Maybe this one is different." Ethan didn't care about the gossip. His mind was focused on the ship. He studied old blueprints stored in the Scrapyard's database, memorized energy flows, weapon placement, and defensive systems. Even though the ship was old and outdated, he saw where improvements could be made. A new energy core, better shields, faster engines. The potential was there. One morning he noticed something unusual in the ship's AI core. Though it had been decommissioned, there were still fragments of programming. Old human routines mixed with alien coding. Ethan carefully repaired the core, reconnecting circuits, patching corrupted data, and rewriting commands. Hours later, a soft hum filled the cockpit. The panels lit up one by one, the ship's heart was waking. Ethan leaned back, feeling a thrill he hadn't felt in years. "Hello, old friend," he said. "You're not dead yet." He knew the work was far from over. The ship could not fight, could not move fast, and could not survive in combat. But the core was alive, and that was the most important step. He rested briefly and then returned to work, reinforcing the hull, calibrating engines, and testing small weapon systems. Aliens who passed by began to take notice. They did not approach, but whispers spread. "The human fixed the AI," one muttered. "He is not like us." Another laughed nervously. "Maybe the old stories about humans are true. They are clever, dangerous." Weeks turned into months. Ethan's progress was slow but steady. He repaired every minor fault, improved every weak system, and added his own modifications. A hidden compartment here, a shield booster there. He even built a small energy drone to help monitor the ship's systems, something no alien would have thought to do. One evening, while testing the energy core, the ship shuddered. Sparks flew and a low hum filled the hangar. Ethan steadied himself, his hands firm on the controls. The hum grew louder, and then suddenly the cockpit lights glowed fully. Every system was online. Ethan grinned. "Not bad for a scrap heap," he said. "You're coming back to life." He stood outside the ship, looking at the reinforced hull. It was no longer just an old fighter. It was a combination of human ingenuity and scavenged alien technology. It was strong, resilient, and ready for more. Yet Ethan knew this was only the beginning. From the shadows, a few aliens watched. They had not believed a human could do this. Now even they had to admit it, humans were unpredictable. They were persistent. They did not give up when machines were broken or when others laughed. Ethan smiled at the night sky. Stars glimmered in the distance, each one a world, a challenge, a possibility, and somewhere out there warships still roamed, unaware that a human was quietly preparing a forgotten fighter for something greater. He returned to the cockpit, sat in the pilot's seat, and placed his hands on the controls. "Soon," he whispered, "we will see what you can really do." And with that, the hum of the ship filled the hangar, a sound of life, promise, and hidden power. The scrapyard had seen thousands of machines die. But tonight, a human had reminded the galaxy that nothing is truly useless if someone has the will to bring it back. The hangar was quiet except for the steady hum of the ship's systems. Ethan Riker sat in the cockpit of the revived fighter, feeling a surge of satisfaction. Vigilant, he had given the ship that name, was alive and its systems were functional. But alive was not enough. A ship could exist, but it would not be feared unless it could fight, survive, and strike with precision. That was the next challenge. Ethan began work at dawn. He crouched over the engine compartment, his fingers deftly manipulating coils, connectors, and energy conduits. The core hummed, but efficiency was low. He needed more power, more speed, more endurance. The scrapyard offered endless possibilities. Parts were scattered across piles of abandoned ships, waiting for someone clever enough to see their potential. He scavenged a set of ion turbines from a derelict cruiser. They were damaged, but with careful welding and calibration, Ethan fused them into Vigilance engines. The turbines fit perfectly, as if they were always meant to be there. He added a new cooling system, scavenged from a mining vessel, and adjusted the energy flow to maximize output. The ship began to vibrate differently, a subtle hum that suggested increased power. Next came the shield generators. Vigilance's original shields had been weak, enough only to deflect minor debris. Ethan reinforced them using layered alloys and a modified energy matrix from an alien patrol ship. It was delicate work. One wrong connection and the shields could fail catastrophically. Hours passed as he tested, rewired, and adjusted. Finally, the displays in the cockpit showed a fully operational shield system, stronger than any human cruiser of its size. Weapons were more complicated. The ship had modular bays, but most of its cannons were outdated or broken. Ethan took laser emitters from a mining drone, pulse cannons from a small patrol ship, and even a compact missile launcher from a derelict freighter. Each weapon had to be calibrated to work together, to avoid overloading the ship's core. He spent days adjusting firing sequences, energy output, and targeting protocols. During this time, other scavengers began to take notice. Aliens who had once mocked him now watched silently from the shadows. They whispered to each other, wary of the humans' patience and skill. A few even approached cautiously, offering parts they had found, though none dared to interfere directly. They were learning something slowly. Humans were not like other species. Humans did not see limits the way aliens did. Ethan worked tirelessly, often skipping meals and sleep. He built auxiliary systems that no alien engineer would consider necessary. A compact drone network would allow him to monitor the ship's surroundings, detect threats, and even assist with minor repairs during flight. He installed redundant power cells to prevent system failures in the middle of combat. Every modification was carefully planned, yet it also carried a touch of improvisation that only a human could design. One evening, after connecting the final energy conduit, Ethan leaned back in the cockpit. Vigilance systems glowed with life. The engines purred, the shields held firm, and the weapons were ready. He ran a series of simulations in the ship's AI, teaching it to recognize threats, predict movements, and coordinate attacks. The AI was not fully intelligent, but it was fast, adaptable, and loyal to human commands. "This is more than just a ship," Ethan said aloud. "This is a war machine." The first test came sooner than expected. A group of alien scavengers attempted to board the scrapyard to seize valuable parts. They expected little resistance. A handful of humans could not stop them. But Ethan was ready. Vigilance drone network detected the intruders before they reached the hangar. Automated turrets fired warning shots, and the alien ships were forced to retreat. They did not understand what had happened, only that a single human had prepared for something they could not anticipate. Ethan smiled as he watched the retreating vessels. This was proof of concept. Vigilant was not just strong, it was clever. The combination of human thinking and adaptive systems made it unpredictable. Alien crews relied on standard tactics. Humans relied on creativity. That difference would matter in the battles to come. Over the next few weeks, Ethan pushed the ship further. He tested engine output in short flights through the debris fields of the scrapyard. Vigilant moved faster than any human fighter had a right to move. Its shields held against simulated attacks and its weapons fired with precision. Every system worked in harmony, yet Ethan did not grow complacent. He knew that real battles would be chaotic, dangerous, and full of surprises. He also made sure the ship could survive outside the yard. Life support systems were upgraded, emergency protocols were implemented, and fuel efficiency was improved. Even if Vigilant was far from friendly territory, Ethan could rely on the ship to carry him, adapt, and fight. One night, as he worked on fine-tuning the targeting systems, Ethan noticed movement near the edge of the yard. Several alien engineers observed from a distance, whispering among themselves. They had been watching his progress, and now their curiosity was mixed with fear. Humans, they realized, were more than fragile creatures. Humans were creators, thinkers, and warriors. Ethan ignored the observers. His focus remained on the ship. He connected a final sequence of adaptive algorithms to the AI, allowing Vigilant to respond to unforeseen situations automatically. If alien ships attempted unconventional attacks, the AI could adjust shields, reroute power, and suggest maneuvers in real time. The ship was no longer simply a vehicle. It was a companion in battle, almost alive. By now, the ship had changed from a forgotten relic to something new. Its hull gleamed faintly under the hangar lights, a mixture of old armor and new alloys. Its engines hummed with restrained power, and its weapon systems were precise and deadly. Ethan tested each subsystem carefully, running through drills that combined speed, defense, and attack. Every day the ship grew stronger. Every day Ethan grew more confident. He thought about the galaxy beyond the scrapyard. Trade routes were dangerous. Pirate activity was high, and many systems had fallen into chaos. Governments relied on old fleets. Alien militias were expanding, and conflict was always near. Humans had survived in small colonies, often underestimated and ignored. But with Vigilant, Ethan realized, humans could challenge even the most advanced fleets. One morning, Ethan performed a full system check. All engines were at optimal performance. Shields were at full strength, weapons were ready, and the AI was fully integrated. He sat in the cockpit, feeling the hum of energy under his hands, and allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. "You are ready," he said softly to the ship, not just to fly, but to fight. Yet he also knew the dangers. Vigilant was powerful, but it was still only one ship against many. He needed more experience, more testing, and more understanding of alien tactics. Combat was not predictable, and no amount of preparation could eliminate risk entirely. But humans, he reminded himself, excelled in the unpredictable. Humans could adapt, improvise, and triumph against overwhelming odds. From the shadows, a few aliens lingered, curious and uneasy. They had expected a human to fail. They had expected a ship that could not move, could not fight, could not survive. But now they saw something else. They saw the beginnings of a force they could not ignore. Ethan prepared for the next step, the first flight beyond the yard. He had repaired, upgraded, and enhanced every system. The ship was no longer a relic. It was a machine of war, crafted by human hands and human intelligence, and now it was time to see if it could perform in the real world. As he climbed into the cockpit and strapped in, he felt a thrill of anticipation. The hangar doors opened to the blackness of space, revealing debris fields, distant stars, and the unknown dangers ahead. Vigilant's engines roared to life, faster and stronger than ever before. Shields shimmered faintly around the hull, and weapon systems hummed with quiet power. Ethan smiled. "Let's see what you can really do," he said. And with that, the ship lifted off, moving through the junk-strewn orbit with agility and speed. It was a small victory, but a significant one. For the first time, a human had taken what everyone else saw as worthless and turned it into something extraordinary. The galaxy, far beyond the scrapyard, remained unaware of what was coming. But Ethan knew. Humans were not helpless. Humans were clever, fearless, and relentless. And in Vigilant, that truth had a name. The hangar doors opened slowly, revealing the vast darkness of space beyond the scrapyard. Stars twinkled faintly in the distance, their light reflecting off shards of metal scattered in orbit. Ethan Riker sat in the cockpit of Vigilant, his hand steady on the controls. Today, he would take the ship out for its first real test flight. The simulations had been promising, but the real world was always more unpredictable. He activated the engines. The hum grew into a roar, vibrating through the hull. Lights flickered on across the control panels and energy readouts stabilized. Vigilant responded instantly, a perfect balance of power and precision. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Every control felt right. Every system was working in harmony. As he maneuvered through the debris field, Vigilant darted between broken hulls and scattered satellite parts with surprising agility. Ethan had reinforced the ship's engines and shields, but seeing it move through obstacles so smoothly was exhilarating. The ship was no longer just repaired. It was alive, almost as if it understood him. Ethan pushed the engines further, testing speed and handling. The ship surged forward, slipping through narrow gaps with ease. Shields glimmered faintly as debris brushed past. Small sparks flew, but Vigilant held steady. Ethan allowed himself a brief grin. The ship was performing even better than he had hoped, but this was only the beginning. He needed to test weapons. He activated the pulse cannons, aiming at a derelict cargo ship drifting nearby. Energy beams lanced forward, striking the hull with precision. Sparks and molten metal sprayed as the cannons tore through weakened plating. Ethan noted the accuracy, the energy consumption, and the heat output. Everything was within safe limits. Next came the missile systems. He launched a small salvo at a cluster of abandoned satellites. The missiles zipped forward, guided by the ship's AI, and detonated precisely, leaving clean craters in the floating debris. Ethan allowed himself a small chuckle. "Not bad," he said. "Not bad at all." Suddenly, sensors picked up movement. A group of alien scavenger ships had entered the area. They were small, fast, and armed lightly, likely thinking they could challenge a single human in an old fighter. Ethan smiled. This would be the first real test of Vigilant in a hostile situation. The aliens approached cautiously. Their ships were equipped with standard weapons, but their crews relied heavily on conventional tactics. They had never faced a human pilot who combined ingenuity with a ship designed for speed, stealth, and adaptability. Ethan analyzed their formation and smiled again. He had already predicted several of their moves. He activated the AI-assisted targeting system and engaged stealth thrusters, reducing his ship's visibility on enemy sensors. The scavenger ships fired, energy bolts cutting through space where they expected him to be. Vigilant danced around the attacks, slipping between floating debris, the hum of engines smooth and precise. He fired back. Pulse cannons struck the nearest enemy ship, disabling its engines. Missiles followed, targeting the remaining vessel's weapon systems. The alien pilots were shocked. Their attacks were precise, but their strategy was predictable. They had assumed a single human fighter could be easily outmaneuvered. They were wrong. Vigilant moved faster than they anticipated, weaving through debris, using every trick Ethan had installed. The drones monitored the battlefield, feeding information to the AI, which suggested evasive maneuvers and counterattacks. Ethan followed the suggestions but improvised constantly, combining the AI's advice with his own experience. Within minutes, 2 of the scavenger ships were disabled, drifting silently into the void. The remaining ships attempted to regroup, but Vigilant anticipated their movements. A well-timed missile strike took out their weapon systems, leaving them defenseless. The AI coordinated the attack flawlessly, but Ethan's creativity made the difference. As the last enemy ship retreated, Ethan allowed himself a moment to breathe. The ship hummed under his hands, engines cooling, shields stabilizing. Vigilant had passed its first real test. It had survived combat, outmaneuvered multiple opponents, and demonstrated firepower beyond its original design. But the test flight was not over. Ethan needed to push the ship even further. He navigated toward a dense asteroid field, one that even seasoned pilots avoided. Sensors lit up with warnings of unstable rocks, some tumbling at high speed. Ethan smiled again. If Vigilant could navigate this safely, it would prove its full capability. Engines roared as he guided the ship through narrow gaps, shields absorbing minor collisions with debris. Pulse cannons fired automatically at loose asteroids to clear a path when necessary. The AI suggested alternate routes, but Ethan often ignored them, trusting his instincts. The ship responded perfectly, weaving through the chaos with elegance and precision. Hours passed as he tested speed, agility, shields, and weapons in various scenarios. Vigilant adapted to each challenge, its systems learning and improving in real time. Ethan felt a growing sense of pride. This was no longer just a repaired fighter. It was a symbol of human ingenuity, a combination of strategy, creativity, and technical skill that aliens could not match. As the asteroid field thinned, Ethan took a moment to reflect. Other humans often relied on numbers and brute force, but he knew that cleverness, patience, and adaptability were equally powerful. Vigilant embodied all of these qualities. A single human could challenge forces that were far larger, far stronger, and far more advanced. He paused near a small moon, watching the debris drift around it. From this vantage, the scrapyard seemed peaceful, almost serene, but Ethan knew that peace was fragile. Pirates, rogue factions, and hostile fleets roamed nearby systems. Vigilant would need to be ready for anything. Suddenly, alarms blared. Sensors detected an unknown ship approaching rapidly. It was larger, armed with heavy weapons, and clearly intended to intimidate. Ethan's pulse quickened. This was the first time he faced a truly dangerous opponent in Vigilant. He studied the ship, analyzing its movements and energy output. The AI ran simulations predicting multiple attack vectors. Ethan considered each option carefully. Then, with a steady hand, he activated the stealth thrusters and maneuvered the ship toward a dense cluster of floating debris. The alien ship fired, but its shots were slowed by the obstacles. Vigilant darted between rocks and twisted metal, using speed and cover to avoid damage. He counterattacked with precision. Pulse cannons disabled the enemy's shield generators, while missiles targeted propulsion systems. The larger ship tried to adjust, but Vigilant's speed and agility were unmatched. Ethan used every trick he had installed, every system he had upgraded to outmaneuver and disable the enemy ship without destroying it completely. He wanted the victory, not unnecessary destruction. After a tense chase, the alien ship retreated, damaged but operational. Ethan exhaled slowly, feeling both relief and triumph. Vigilant had survived a true test of combat, proving its potential in a dangerous galaxy. The AI recorded every move, every attack, and every defensive maneuver, preparing for future encounters. As he guided the ship back toward the scrapyard, Ethan realized something important. This test flight was more than just a check of systems. It was a proof of concept. Aliens had underestimated humans, assuming that their machines could never match advanced fleets. But humans were different. Humans adapted. Humans created. Humans fought in ways that could not be predicted. The stars stretched before him, endless and full of possibilities. Vigilant's engines hummed smoothly, shields stabilizing, weapons ready but unused. Ethan felt a thrill of excitement mixed with determination. This was only the beginning. The galaxy was full of challenges, but with ingenuity, patience, and courage, humans could rise above expectations. He docked the ship in the hangar, carefully shutting down systems and recording performance data. The scavengers who had watched from the shadows remained silent, but the look in their eyes had changed. They no longer saw a fragile human tinkering with junk. They saw a pilot who could command a warship, a mind capable of turning scrap into power, and a force that could not be ignored. Ethan stepped out of the cockpit and stretched, his body tired but his spirit energized. He looked at Vigilant gleaming under the hangar lights. The ship had been a forgotten relic, discarded and abandoned. Now it was alive, adaptive, and ready for war if necessary. But more than that, it was a symbol of human ingenuity. He knew that the real challenges lay ahead. Pirates, hostile factions, and alien fleets roamed the galaxy. Vigilant had proven itself in a test flight, but the first true battle would be far more dangerous. Ethan would need every skill, every idea, and every ounce of human creativity to survive. He placed his hand on the ship's hull and whispered, "We're ready. Let's show them what humans can do." Outside, the stars twinkled silently, unaware of the human and his extraordinary fighter preparing for a galaxy that had never expected them. The calm of space was broken by the distant hum of approaching engines. Ethan Riker sat in the cockpit of Vigilant, his eyes scanning the sensors. A fleet of alien warships had entered the sector. Their hulls gleamed with energy shields and weapon systems glinted with deadly intent. They were confident, organized, and certain of victory. Most humans would have panicked at the sight, but Ethan did not. He studied the formation of the alien fleet carefully. They moved in tight lines, relying on coordinated attacks and superior numbers. It was a standard tactic, predictable, and that was where vigilance advantage came into play. Humans were unpredictable. Humans thought differently, and today Ethan intended to prove it. He activated the ship's thrusters, weaving between debris with precise control. Vigilant moved like a shadow, sleek and fast, its shields shimmering faintly under the strain of high-speed maneuvers. The drones monitored the surrounding space, feeding real-time data to the ship's AI. The system calculated hundreds of possible outcomes, but Ethan made the final decisions, improvising constantly. The first wave of alien scouts approached. Small ships, fast and lightly armed, meant to test the human pilot's reaction. Ethan waited until the last moment. Then, with a sudden burst of speed, Vigilant darted through the debris, firing pulse cannons at close range. The cannons struck with precision, disabling the scouts before they could regroup. Missiles launched automatically, targeting their propulsion systems. The scouts exploded silently in space, leaving their larger fleet unaware of what had just happened. Ethan smiled. The first move was always important. It set the pace. Humans adapted quickly, and now the alien commanders would realize they were facing more than a simple fighter. The main fleet advanced, heavy cruisers moving in formation. They fired in coordinated volleys, energy beams slicing through the debris field. Vigilant dodged effortlessly, its small size and speed making it almost impossible to target. Ethan pushed the ship to its limits, weaving between incoming fire and using the debris as cover. The AI suggested maneuvers, but Ethan often improvised, combining instinct with machine precision. He fired the first volley of heavy weapons. Missiles struck enemy shields, testing their strength. Pulse cannons tore through weaker sections of armor. The larger ships were forced to adjust formation, unsure of how a single human fighter could move with such speed and precision. The aliens retaliated, targeting Vigilant with concentrated fire. Shields flared under repeated strikes, absorbing most of the energy. Ethan adjusted power flow, redirecting energy from engines to shields and then back again as needed. The ship responded perfectly. Every modification he had made, every human solution to a technical problem was paying off. He noticed a small gap between two of the cruisers. It was narrow but sufficient for a daring move. He engaged full engines and accelerated, slipping between the enemy vessels. The AI recalculated instantly, adjusting shield strength and weapon alignment. Pulse cannons fired sideways, striking vulnerable weapon arrays on both ships. Missiles followed, targeting critical systems. Sparks and energy arcs danced across enemy hulls. The alien commanders were stunned. Their fleet was supposed to be unbeatable by a single fighter, but here was Vigilant, a machine of scrap metal and ingenuity, moving with impossible precision and striking with deadly force. They had expected numbers to win, but humans were different. Humans created solutions in the moment. Humans adapted. Humans fought in ways the galaxy had not anticipated. Ethan did not pause to admire the chaos. He continued the attack, weaving through the fleet, striking where enemy defenses were weakest. One cruiser lost power entirely, drifting silently into the void. Another had weapons systems destroyed, its crew scrambling to compensate. Vigilance drones provided constant updates, alerting Ethan to new threats before they could become dangerous. Yet the battle was not without danger. A massive warship, clearly the flagship, turned its attention directly toward him. Its energy cannons were larger and far more powerful than the cruisers. Shields flared as beams tore toward Vigilant. Ethan engaged emergency thrusters, weaving unpredictably, while firing missiles at weak points he had studied carefully. The flagship's shields absorbed much of the damage, but he had a plan. He led the ship in a feint, pretending to flee toward a nearby asteroid cluster. The flagship followed, calculating a direct intercept. Then at the last moment, Ethan reversed course, using the debris for cover, and struck from an unexpected angle. Pulse cannons fired in rapid bursts, targeting shield generators and propulsion nodes. The flagship shuddered, alarms blaring across the alien vessel. For the first time, the alien fleet hesitated. The human fighter was not only surviving, they were disrupting their formation, destroying their systems with skill and cunning. Ethan continued to press the advantage, striking at weak points, forcing larger ships to divert attention and isolating targets one by one. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. Vigilant systems held steady, the AI assisting flawlessly but always under Ethan's direction. He coordinated attacks with a combination of strategy, intuition, and improvisation. The alien fleet began to fall into disarray, their confidence shaken. The humans had done something no one expected. The remaining ships attempted a retreat, but Ethan did not pursue recklessly. He allowed them to escape, focusing instead on securing the area. Vigilance shields and engines were intact. The weapons were ready for further action, and the drones continued monitoring space for new threats. The first battle was won, not through overwhelming power, but through skill, creativity, and determination. As he returned to the scrapyard, Ethan took a deep breath. The victory was significant, but it was also a warning. Aliens across the galaxy would now know that humans were not to be underestimated. Numbers alone could not guarantee success against a mind capable of adapting and improvising. Scavengers in the yard, who had once mocked him, now looked on with respect and caution. Whispers spread quickly. A human had defeated a fleet with a single ship. "The human is clever," one said. "He thinks differently. We should be careful," another added. "Perhaps humans are more dangerous than we believed." Ethan ignored the attention. He returned to the ship, running diagnostics and repairs. Even though Vigilant had emerged victorious, the battle had exposed minor flaws. Heat buildup in the engines, minor shield degradation, and a few overworked weapon circuits. He worked meticulously, fixing each issue, upgrading systems where necessary, and preparing the ship for future encounters. While repairing the ship, he reflected on the battle. He realized that the galaxy underestimated humans because they relied on predictable tactics and technology. Humans, however, thrived in unpredictability. Vigilant was not just a ship. It was a testament to human ingenuity, creativity, and courage. A single human could challenge fleets that were larger, stronger, and more advanced. Ethan knew this victory would not go unnoticed. News of the battle would spread, reaching traders, smugglers, and even governments. Humans had proven their potential. A single fighter, built from scrap and guided by human skill, could change the balance of power. By the time repairs were complete, Vigilant gleamed under the hangar lights, stronger and faster than ever. Ethan stepped back, feeling a deep sense of pride. The ship had faced real combat, survived, and demonstrated the truth. Humans were resourceful, clever, and unstoppable when determined. He looked out at the stars, the vast expanse of space beyond the scrapyard. Somewhere out there, more fleets would test him, more enemies would challenge him, and more battles would await. But Ethan felt ready. Vigilant was ready. And humans, he reminded himself, never gave up. He placed his hand on the ship's hull, feeling its vibrations, its hum, its life. "This is just the beginning," he whispered. "We will show the galaxy what humans can do." Outside the hangar, the stars shone silently, unaware of the small fighter that had just changed expectations. A human had turned a forgotten relic into a weapon capable of standing against fleets, and soon the galaxy would learn that underestimating humans was a dangerous mistake.